I really like helping people create a life vision. And it sounds intimidating, and it's actually really simple. Like anyone listening can do this today, where you grab a piece of blank paper and a pen, or open a Word doc or whatever, a notes app, and you say, okay, so right now it's 2024, it's 2034, I'm X years old, and life has become exactly what I hoped it would be. And then you just start writing. It's Monday morning, I wake up, and what happens? And you just start, give me the story. Write a chapter of the book. Like, tell me what you see and smell and what's happening step by step through the day. It's not a bullet list. It's like a prose writing exercise where you just don't stop until you run out of thoughts. And what you're doing is you're thinking about the different areas of life: career, health, finance, spiritual, personal growth, experiences. And in each of those buckets, you're writing out like what you would love life to look like.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. I'm Will Melton, I'm your host, and today I am at Lost Office Collaborative with Steve Perkins from Greenhouse Coaching. If you're new to this program, please check out americashealthiestcity.com to learn about our 10-year community partnership to make Richmond the healthiest region in America by 2033. We are looking for people to sign on as ambassadors to put their company name on our website and say that they're willing to put their decisions through the strategic filter, which asks, how will this decision make our community healthier? We're also inviting anybody to add their ideas to our ideas board so that we can inspire folks just like you to get involved, contribute, chip in whatever small or large way they can. But without further ado, Steve, thanks for inviting me into your space today and for agreeing to chat with me. I'm excited about this interview.
Same, yeah. Thanks for having me.
So I've done my research. I know that you are a Wolverine, but my number one question is: are you a native to Virginia or to Richmond, or did you move here at some point? And what brought you here, if so?
Yeah. I grew up in Michigan, Southwest Michigan, kind of Grand Rapids area, and my wife Ashley did as well in Holland, Michigan. We had moved and lived in all parts of Michigan, so people do like the mitten. Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten the mitten before?
Well, I was born right here, right here.
Oh, there we go. Okay,
Lansing.
So we lived in East Lansing for a while in our enemy territory. But we moved down in 2010 to Richmond, Virginia for a job I took at Capital One, which is a major hub here. Had a lot of great experiences there, and we've stayed ever since because it's we just love this area. I mean, we love everything about Richmond. And don't miss the weather in Michigan. I don't know about you. It's not even the cold or the snow. You know, when people here think like, oh, you must have hated the cold and snow. I'm like, no, it's just the gray overcast is the problem. But we go back quite a bit and hang out at Lake Michigan and stuff.
I have avoided going back to my home state. I've adopted Virginia as my home, but I just got off a road trip a couple weeks back, and we went through the Upper Peninsula, which I had never done before.
Yeah,
and that was an experience. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah,
and Lake Superior was a sight to see.
Yeah,
so, it's a beautiful place. But
yeah, that's like a whole wonderland. People don't even know. I mean, it feels so untouched. One time, those big sand dunes that they used to do logging up top, and then send the logs down the dunes, and they would shoot out into the water to the barge. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, it's like suddenly you're in the Sahara Desert or something, and we ran down those dunes, no people in sight, and you get going so fast, it's like your legs can't keep up with your body, and then you're just pouring in sweat, you're so hot, and you get to the bottom, and you just dive in Lake Superior, and then you realize it's like an ice bath. I mean,
all year.
Yeah. So I remember we were just like, oh, there's no one for like hundreds of miles, so we just like stripped down and we're skinny dipping, like diving into Lake Superior and laughing. And just then there was like this cliff out in the distance. We're like, no one's around, this is hilarious. And then we hear this like, and this huge like tourist ferry boat comes out from behind the cliff. So we're running back up the dune. But yeah, that's an interesting area.
Well, they don't have anything on Richmond, and I know we have a little bit of humidity here, but we put up with that for all the other amenities we enjoy.
How long have you been here?
I moved to Richmond in 2017, and And, I kind of stayed head down, growing my business for a few years and
Mm-hmm.
didn't really plug into the community as much as I've been able to since 2020. But I lived in Williamsburg starting in 2000. So
Okay.
I've been in Virginia for quite a while.
Yeah.
It's definitely home. It's
Yeah.
definitely home.
Yeah, same here.
So let's talk a little bit about your background. So we're going to talk about coaching today, and I want to get into workplace culture. I want to get into, this is a big part of our life, and we have emotional struggles and,
Mhm.
and conflicts, and we've got to work with other people, and we've got to grow, and so I really want to talk about that. But I want to do justice to your background. You're an engineer by training, and you moved into you've worked for some very interesting companies in the past, and including Capital One, and now you're in this coaching space, and you are working with similarly large companies, and that's exciting as well. Tell me a little bit about how you went from engineer to coach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the linear path, which through this work I've come to discover that probably over 80% of people do not have a linear career path. I think in the last couple of years that's accelerated even more. So it's always a topic I love because I always wanted to be like an inventor. I also loved deep conversations about life and big ideas around the fire pit. And I was like, wouldn't that be cool if you could do these things for a job? But that was just a joke. Like, no, you can't be an inventor for a job. Everything's already been invented. And
You always watch those invent help commercials.
oh
when you're a
yeah,
kid,
I love
like,
that stuff. Yeah.
How much does that cost?
I know. And so fast forward, my parents kind of sort of got the opportunity to go to college, but not really. So it's not like I had a lot of that guidance some people have of, oh, here's what you should do and here's the major you should get into. So yeah, I went to University of Michigan to do engineering because it's like, well, decent at math and science, like that's a stable career path, cool. And it was great. I loved a lot about it. It kind of tapped into that inventor side of me. But I came to realize even in college, this is not my thing. And it started becoming this nagging, almost existential crisis early on. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I have no idea. And it's like, how do you figure that out? It doesn't seem like there's anyone who helps you figure that out. So, I worked at tech startups. I worked in auto manufacturing. I worked in consumer products. I actually have some patents with Ziploc bags. We were doing like sous vide, trying to create sous vide before it was really a thing with Ziploc bags, and then trying to create sustainable, biodegradable Ziploc bags. That was like, those were my projects. Okay, so I got to tap into the inventor side. And then I got into nanotechnology and superconducting particle accelerators. It was like all these really high-tech, interesting projects. And like I learned that invisibility cloaks exist. Like all these things that we dream of in movies actually already exist. And we were developing like these Spider-Man gloves that could help a human climb up a wall and all this cool stuff. But meanwhile, step by step, I was still confused what I like want to be when I grow up. And I was realizing more and more that even with these really interesting jobs, I was in these toxic company cultures that were honestly eating away at me, like to the point where in one job that was exceptionally bad, it was ruining my health, my friendships. I was newly married at the time, and it was really taking a hit on our relationship, and it started to uncover like how much passion and interest I had in company culture and great leadership, and also in like individual career purpose. So I think that was a bit of the genesis of it, starting to piece those things together. But I don't know about you, like I always get frustrated with, you do some kind of personality assessment, let's say, and it's inspiring or it's energizing. You get the results and you're really happy, and then you just don't know what to do with it. It's like, what do I do with this now? How do I translate that into what I'm spending more, most of my waking hours doing every day at work? I didn't understand how that translates. So fast forward, I'm working in the big corporate environment at Capital One. Loved it, learned so many cool things, met amazing people, but same pattern again. I'm leading tech teams. I'm like, this isn't me. I would go home at the end of the day feeling like I have more to give. I think I'm only giving like 20% of what I have to give. And I was afraid to say that because that sounds arrogant. Like, oh, I'm so much greater than this. But it wasn't that. It was just that nagging feeling of, I want to contribute and make an impact. And I don't think I'm in the sweet spot for me for doing that. So I'm continuing to ask these questions and search. I started putting together a process that's now our flagship tool online called Career Sweet Spot. It's kind of where the engineering collided with the people skills of what is a linear process to actually try and figure out what are you good at, what are you passionate about, what's your personality and your wiring, and then how do those actually translate into what you do every day, which you and I are now like living a lot of that out. And so you feel how energizing and meaningful it is, but also you do your best work.
Yeah.
I've had some people say, oh, well, that's selfish we're so privileged that we could sit around and think about what are you passionate about. And while I agree with that, it's also very sacrificial and good for the world to do what you're best wired to do. That's when you help people the most, when you're in that sweet spot. So I was figuring that out. I had this cool opportunity at Capital One to build a culture transformation team. And they were trying to get into new methods of working. Agile development, kind of taken from Silicon Valley. Design thinking, taken from the design and innovation world. And at the same time, that's all about teams collaborating. I always think of like Ocean's 11. Everyone doing their special sauce thing together on a mission together. But yet we lived in a culture, which most companies still have, where they pitted us against each other. And teammates are supposed to outperform each other. And this just fascinated me. Again, where my engineer kicks in, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. We got to fix this. So at the time, people thought like company culture means, happy hours and team building events. I'm like, no, it's so much more than that. It's the design of the whole organization so that people are in their sweet spots and they know how to work together and the leadership is leading them well. So like this has become now what I do every day is how do we help people be at their best, leaders lead well, and teams work together well, which is also why we started collaborating with your other new friends here at Lost Office, who you had on, Christian and Mark.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what led to this. And I'm now so passionate about helping people who might identify as like a generalist or I don't know, I'm a Swiss Army knife, I do a little of everything. It's okay that you don't have a linear career path because that's actually how you find your uniqueness. Mm-hmm. And it is possible to get there if you have some help or a process to start uncovering like, okay, how does my wiring fit with what the world needs and step into that. So that was a lot, but I think it's like your question is interesting because so many people don't have a linear path. It doesn't make sense on paper what happened to me, but here we are.
Okay. Well, we have to take a quick break. We'll come back and dive into that a little bit deeper. You are listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1, part of the Mike King Biz Media Network. You can catch us each week at 6 a.m. here on the network or at espnrichmond.com. If you miss our show, you can also watch full episodes at America's Healthiest City on YouTube, or you can catch clips on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. Today we are at Lost Office Collaborative with Steve Perkins, the owner and chief coach, I guess, at Greenhouse Coaching. And we're talking about workplace culture, such an important topic because our work is a big part of our life. One thing that you said in the last segment was about the luxury of having the time to think.
Uh-huh.
And I have had a coach in the past and really enjoyed my experience. I needed to take a little break this year for a lot that I've got going on. But one of the things that I developed in working with her was this notion of, what are my priorities? What do I need to be focusing on? And what is the order of those priorities? Mm-hmm. And in the beginning of developing this, I had everything from, team development, sales, vision planning, and recruitment were my four. And they've remained my four since the beginning because I lead my company. But in the beginning, I had sales as my top most important item because I was always needing to close that gap.
Right.
And I eventually, over time, realized that I always need to have vision as my number one. If I don't have that clarity of what the vision is going to be, I can't empower my team, and I can't, I don't know who I need to recruit, and I can't, effectively make those sales happen. And so I don't think it's so much a luxury as much as it is a necessity in order for us to be successful working together. So tell us a little bit more about, how do you work with folks, companies? How do you work with individuals in order to kind of help them find their path?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned vision, which I think I'm realizing is the biggest secret key to success and fulfillment out there that I didn't know was such a secret. Even you think about companies, and when you're talking about the big picture stuff, they have a mission statement. Everyone's big on mission statements. And it's very rare, even with extremely successful CEOs or big companies, it's very rare that they have a vision. And a lot of times they call their mission statement a vision. It's not. Like, a mission is what you're doing in the world to solve problems and help people. A vision is the destination of where you are headed, what life looks like, what the company looks like, 100 years from now or 10 years from now. And so I'm a huge fan of what you said, which is, if you don't have a vision, then how do you know what to do to get there? And it's all going to be on accident versus intentional. So, I mean, the cheesy but true analogy of travel. It's like, if you don't know where you're trying to fly to, okay, I'm hoping to get to LA, but I'm just going to randomly pick flights. It's like, well, probably not going to happen. But if I know I'm trying to get to LA from Richmond, then I can choose the right flights and times and work it out, and I'm much more likely to get there. It's really that simple. So what you said actually happens to be our main process. So we say we like to help people grow the life they want. We are about a whole person where all the parts of your life work together in sync versus competing against each other, which is what most of us are walking around doing, and I've experienced a lot in my life. And so, of course, work being one of the places we spend the most time, we focus a lot there. How do you create a work that facilitates the life you want versus them competing against each other? It's the thing to me that's so interesting about work-life balance as a topic. It's kind of...
I don't even like that word.
Yeah, most people don't like
balance. Yeah. It's just life balance.
Yeah, and then some people said, oh, it's work-life integration. It's like, it's still just the wrong question to begin with. It's about getting the parts of your life working together versus competing for space.
It's like, if you have to separate work from your regular life, it must be terrible.
Yeah,
like, why are you doing
already like having a problem. So whether it's improving relationships or finding the right career or becoming a better leader, to us the topic doesn't matter. It's still about crafting a vision of what I want my life and work to look like, and then bringing that down to a level of goals and intentions. So then what am I going to do to move towards that vision of what I want it to look like? And then moving it down to the weekly rhythms of, all right, what are the steps I'm taking that move toward the goals, that move towards the vision? It's again, I thought that made sense as an engineer, but maybe that's where those skills ended up helping, because in this people space that we're in, that's not the typical way. And so we have tools online, we have one-on-one coaching, we work with teams and companies, but all of those things are always around that vision, intentions, and rhythms framework. We call it the greenhouse method. It's just, you can't take meaningful steps in the right direction if you don't know where you're trying to go.
With the few minutes we've got left, I really want to think a little bit about your ideas for Richmond and how you can take your work and what you do for people and elevate that, expand it, give more people access to these ideas. What would be some things that you would share with our listeners about ways that they could improve their life in some way, or feel more connected to the the society that we're all trying to build, make better? Lessons from your work and life that you think would resonate?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting question to me, because I think it's highly ironic that we are so educated now as a culture, and yet we barely learned anything about these areas of our life that we spend the most time and energy on. If you think about it, like, I went to engineering school. I took through calculus 4 and I learned about, astrophysics and all these things. And yeah, I never learned how to have a successful relationship, how to find my sweet spot in my career, how to lead teams and individuals well. That's what I do all day. I mean, that's what makes the whole thing work. So it's just really interesting to me, and I'm passionate about filling that gap. So now as adults, let's go back and let's learn the things we never learned. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think, going back to your point of vision, I really like helping people create a life vision. And it sounds intimidating, and it's actually really simple. Like, anyone listening can do this today, where you grab a piece of blank paper and a pen, or open a Word doc or whatever, a notes app, and you say, okay, so right now it's 2024, it's 2034, I'm X years old, and life has become exactly what I hoped it would be. And then you just start writing. It's Monday morning, I wake up, and what happens? And you just start, give me the story. Write a chapter of the book. Like, tell me what you see and smell and what's happening step by step through the day. It's not a bullet list. It's like a prose writing exercise where you just don't stop until you run out of thoughts. And what you're doing is you're thinking about the different areas of life: career, health, finance, spiritual, personal growth, experiences. And in each of those buckets, you're writing out like what you would love life to look like. And I think because that's the first step to, we're talking about the healthiest city. Even with health, we think of fitness and food. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you and I know, like, healthy, the definition of healthy is so much bigger than just fitness and food. And so this to me is like the first step of starting to think bigger than just those pieces. What about the other areas of your life? And if you're a leader, what about the other areas of your company or your business? And in dreaming a little, so then you can start to work back to like, all right, so what are the next steps I might take to start bringing those dreams alive? But like you said, without the dreams, without the vision, we're just either like aimlessly going around reacting to every notification that pops up, or we're copying other people and not doing what we're uniquely meant to do. So that's, to me, like the best starting point to making the city, the community healthier and better and more impactful. But it starts at the individual level.
Well, I feel like it's very easy in life to wake up every day and go to bed, and then tomorrow do that all over again, mm-hmm. instead of thinking about each day as a part of a much bigger existence. And I think that's what you're helping people to see with this tactic. I do something similar. What's life look like 10 years in the future? And I ask myself 6 questions whenever I do my reflection. Uh-huh. So I don't do a full prose, but I'll have to try that.
What are some of the questions?
Well, I'll go through the whole list. So are your priorities getting the attention that they deserve? Uh-huh. And I have to make sure, I have to reorder the priorities if they need to be reordered based on what's happening. What does life look like 10 years from now? Why do you do the hard things?
That's a good one.
I really like that question. If I ever feel like I'm in a funk, that question helps me kind of just remember that there's a reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Who are you going to call today? And then I have another question that's about if I feel like, maybe I'm not meeting my priorities, or I'm not, tending to things, I'll ask myself, what can you do to improve today?
Yeah.
And so I really keep the bar low, but I don't do any yes or no questions. I always try to make sure that I'm writing something new. But it might be something small. But I think it does definitely help me to realize, okay, that vision, of where I see myself in 10 years contrasts with what I'm doing today. And I know where the pain exists and what I need to fix. And so I think I should do it every day. And I'm not a rules person, so I don't, but it helps when I do.
Yeah. Just having a framework, something intentional. And I'm not perfect either. I mean, I'm most of the stuff I help others with, I'm not doing it consistently, but that's not the point. It's like the intentionality is the point. And it's the same with when we work with leaders. It's funny to me how often, like, they were promoted for being good at their job functions. And so, they're good at like math or spreadsheets or whatever. And then suddenly they're leading people and they never learned how. It's just fascinating to me. Like, we have these rituals and these ceremonies in life to graduate or to get married, or these different things to say, all right, now you're entering this new stage and you need new skills for that. But we don't do it with leadership and with career. And so I think A lot of leaders, they could have a giant impact, and yet they forfeit a lot of that because they just haven't taken the time to step into that new role of what does it look like to lead people versus just being the doer that got me there. And so I think these kind of intentional step back, if you struggle to actually activate on these things that we just shared, then do our hack we just said, like schedule time with a person, 30 minutes, schedule it with them on Monday morning, and sit there and do the exercise.
Yeah.
Put yourself on the hook.
Yeah. Well, I wish we could talk for longer. I really do. I want to give you a chance to let folks know where they can find you out there. And you may not have a name in mind, but if there's anybody out there that you think we should bring in and interview who's making a difference that we can learn from, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Yes, I have many names I would love to say. So I'll definitely sit down and think through and send you some. People can find us at greenhousecoaching.co, just .co, and pretty much access everything there. We have a podcast called Career Sweet Spot, where we share a lot of practical tips in life, career, leadership. But we're also on all the social platforms, primarily YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn. So greenhousecoaching.co kind of directs you to any of those places. But I really love what you said a minute ago. Sometimes this stuff feels lofty or like, where do I start? And people are usually stuck because they don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes people come to us and they say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what to do. And 10 minutes into talking, you realize, no, they do know what to do or what they want to do. They just don't, they're stuck on how to get going. Mm-hmm. And so I think those baby steps are important that you mentioned. Like lower the bar, just take one next step. And that's kind of what our content on our website is designed to do. Like, what's one little step you could take in the right direction? You don't have to solve it all at once.
Well, I look forward to spending more time with those tools, and your insights today, are always a reminder, for me to keep plugging along on this journey of leadership that is no easy feat. People are difficult, but we have to work with them if we want to get things done. So I appreciate the insights and the time today, and we'll definitely have you in again. I think that this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is really fun to talk about this stuff.
This was America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond 106.1. Catch us next week on Thursday at 6 a.m., espnrichmond.com or 106.1 FM.